Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So we actually had a video planned that was going to go out earlier in the week to talk about the potential buffs, reworks that we may see and the community have thought of when it comes to heroes like Mei, Sombra, Symmetra, Doomfist, Torbjorn and Hanzo. Well, since that video we've of course had Blizzard responded to a few of the ideas that they had, and hell, we even saw the stuff with Sombra actually hitting the live service prematurely. So this is a bit of a reiteration on that. I do want to start with the idea of some things I would like to see in the game, and then I want to talk about the abilities and the changes that we've heard regarding Hanzo, Doomfist, and Sombra. So we delved through the Overwatch forums and Reddit and all that stuff, and also spoke about a few ideas amongst ourselves and other channels that we really want to sort of address in this video. Before we actually get started into these, I want to hear your ideas of concepts and ideas for Mei, Sombra, Symmetra, Doomfist, Torbjorn, and Hanzo, if you have them at all. Any ideas that you've posted on forums and all that you think would make a really good idea, and who knows, Blizzard may see that and actually think it's a good idea and go with you. Who knows at this point? Do let us know and we'll get straight into this. We'll start with the Torb changes first, but the main focus of this video, as I said, we had to change it, was going to be on the Hanzo stuff, but we got news of that. But this gameplay was sent in by a long-term sub and friend of ours, Hanzi, so big shout out to him. Me and Miska don't really play a lot of Hanzo, so it was tough to get footage for him. But yeah, let's start with Torbjorn. It was suggested almost a year ago by Blood Lacrima, and it's the idea of this painting a target. The best example would be to compare it to is Discord Orb, where say you have as an E ability, you see a soldier on the high ground on Numbani, and you press E and your turret, if it can, automatically focuses on that hero. In a similar vein to Discord Orb, you can only do it when you're line of sight of that person, and it fades after 3 seconds of a character moving out of the way. But the frustrating thing about Torbjorn's turret is the fact that it kind of goes off on its own, shooting targets that you don't necessarily want it to. You can kind of bait it in a way that it will shoot at a Reinhardt shield whilst the rest of the team can just circle around it and kill the turret, and that can be quite frustrating as a Torbjorn player. So having the ability to actually be able to somewhat control your turret, or at least control what it's going to try and focus on and try and kill, would be a really good way of just making sure that you have a little bit more control and a little bit more communication and synergy with your team. For example, the soldiers on the high ground using ultimate, your turret doesn't get affected by that, and if a Zenyatta throws a Discord Orb on him, you can make sure that the turret's focusing him as well. I really like this idea, and I don't really see any problems with it other than it being maybe too strong, but I think it's just a good way of giving Torbjorn some more control over the game, being able to focus what he wants to do a little bit more, has a bit of a game plan, has to communicate more, and ultimately just makes the turret a little bit less random, I suppose. But another idea on this as well, in a similar sense, is being able to stop the turret. Now, stopping the damage for the turret seems like a weird idea, but the problem, I suppose, with a lot of turrets is to get a good molten core out of your team, you need to be able to surprise the enemy, right? So this idea, again, on the forums has been sort of thrown around that Torbjorn could stop his turret from shooting so it doesn't telegraph to the team before the fight where the Torbjorn turret is. Now, of course, this is susceptible to people throwing by just putting up a turret and then just turning it off, basically. But again, it's a nice idea to make it so the enemy team aren't going to push in onto the point. The turret's already firing at them, so they know where it is, so they kill that first. You can kind of be a bit more sneaky and subtle with how you treat your Torbjorn turret. But I really like the idea of a focus, and I would really like this to be implemented in the game. I don't think it's too strong, but let me know what you think in the comments. Let's talk about the Hanzo stuff, because I guess that's the more prominent stuff. Jeff Goodman spoke about an idea that I haven't seen an awful lot of people talk about, but I remember sat around at BlizzCon with your Overwatch and one amongst many, I believe it was, talking about the idea of a piercing arrow. The piercing arrow would be an ability that could sort of burst through barriers that would be affected by them and do damage behind. Well, actually, Jeff Goodman had seen and tried to implement this idea, but had said that it was an extremely fast projectile, it would pierce through enemies and barriers, and it was pretty fun as a sort of snipey arrow, but it wasn't fun to get one shot from behind a shield. He said ultimately it was pretty frustrating to feel unsafe behind a barrier and then get headshot for it and die. And there are a few options that I still think that this idea would be a good one, and I've deemed it as more of a flaming arrow because it would act very similarly to a flame strike. It wouldn't headshot, it would be very easy to spot so players can move out the way, but of course the main issue is the projectile speed of all of Hanzo's abilities because they're very, very fast. There's not many abilities like Flame Strike or Moira's Orbs or Symmetra's right click, secondary fire if you play console, that go through barriers that can do damage behind them. And we're already in this sort of situation where playing stuff like a Bastion on a payload with 2 shields of Reinhardt and Orisa can get quite difficult to sort of break down. So Hanzo could be quite good in that situation if he had an ability that could pierce through it, but with the speed that it moves and the amount of damage that a Flame Strike does from Reinhardt, which is about 100 damage, it's quite easy to get out of the way of a Flame Strike, but if it's a full projectile speed Hanzo bullet, that's going to be hard to miss. And you don't want to be altering the speed of some of Hanzo's projectiles, because I don't think that would necessarily go down well. Regardless, they played with the idea of changing Scatter Arrow up as well. Scatter Arrow is a hard word to say as an over there because you just go scatter. Doesn't really sound the same, so I'm trying my best not to do that. But they said the Scatter had a very fast projectile speed, could only ricochet once, so it would go off the ground. It could no longer split off the floor, and it would have a much tighter spread. So it gets rid of the idea of floor scattering, which is one of the most annoying things about the ability. It felt fun, but it was hard to use consistently. But it sounds like they're still trying to make Scatter Arrow work, but they do have some ideas in the past. But I do like the idea of a Flaming Arrow. We've heard stuff like a Grapple Arrow that would grab people in places. Like a Mine Arrow, I think would be quite good as well, just to sort of put on a flank, or like a CC almost as well, being able to stun people out with an arrow above them, which would mean that Hanzo would be really good with the wall climb ability, getting above certain targets and trying to CC them from below or above, that kind of stuff. And it's more of a skill shot. But it's nice to know that Blizzard are focusing on the floor ricochet of Scatter Arrow. As a tank player, that is incredibly annoying to do. But regardless, let's go on to the Torbjorn stuff, because I really want to highlight this, hence why it's in the title and on the thumbnail and all, just because this ability, in my eyes, is incredible. Mei will be getting a slight tweak. We know that these changes to her aren't going to be massive. I do want to talk to Jardio on the channel at some point soon, somebody that plays a lot of Mei and is very good at this hero. But the only one that I can really think off the top of my head would be more of a quality of life change to Mei, and that's just being able to reload when cryo freezing. Kind of similar to how Reaper works with Rayform. If you use this ability, it automatically reloads your weapon, and I think that'd be really good for Mei, just to be able to, kind of how McCree uses his role to reload, where Mei can use all of her ammo, cryo freeze, instantly cancel it to then fire again. I think that'd be a strong change. But again, similar to Hanzo, you don't want to change too. Symmetra, again, lots of ideas thrown around. My fear with Symmetra as a hero is you don't want to keep adding stuff to her. She already has a lot in her kit. 2 ultimates, for God's sake. Like, she has so much that she can actually do. Her shield, her turrets, her right click, her left click. She has 2 ultimates, so you don't want to add another ability on there. However, one idea that I do really like is the fact that even if it's minute, Symmetra's sentries heal her team. As I said, even if it's just a little bit, obviously you don't want each of the turrets to heal too much when they're all together, so just micro bits that if you do place them together, it does a decent amount, but not as good as any other healer. But it might be just a good way to sort of control flanks and have a little bit more space to move as that's going on. Again, I don't know if that's too strong, but Symmetra is a very difficult hero to balance. She is very situational. There's no doubt about that, but my biggest problem with her is that she already has so much in her kit that you don't want to add too much that she just turns into this Swiss knife, I suppose, where everything's kind of mediocre within her kit. Now, Doomfist and Sombra, we know the changes. Doomfist has actually gone live with the spread on his weapon. When we hear more about what direction I want to take Doomfist, we'll no doubt sit down with Chipser and see his opinions on the changes once he's had a good go with them, and overall his opinions on what he would do. But Sombra is another interesting one, and I actually really like this direction that they're going with. I was a bit apprehensive that the fact that Sombra could now no longer, almost scared for Sombra to an extent, the fact that she no longer gains ult from health pack healing. It takes away the whole Sombra as a support identity that she's had for so long, which I think is very purposeful, really. But they have decreased the weapon spread, their hacking speed has gone up, and it would disable more abilities. You could disable a Pharah that would be flying over a big crevasse, I suppose. Hacker, she will fall to her death. There's no way around it. And especially this would have been good to see these changes when Mercy was really strong, because it shuts down the angelic descent, and it does take the whole sort of meme idea that people have had about, oh, just hack the Mercy, kill her, lol, the forehead. That would actually be the case if this iteration of Sombra was in the game. There will be a video very, very soon talking about this especially. I know PvP Twitch has been having a tremendous amount of time. This went through very early. I don't think it was quite ready to go to live yet. But it did accidentally go to live, people tried it, and I actually quite liked it, and it's nice to see Sombra being able to be a very offensive character, but I do wonder if it might make her too strong, but that's going to be quite interesting. A Sombra meta isn't anything I'm sort of against, but as a Diva player, I'm almost a little bit terrified as well. But they are all of the 6 heroes, some of the better conceptual ideas, in my opinion, that we've seen, but by all means, do leave yours in the comments below. Like I said earlier, I really want to see what people suggest, and if I spot an idea that actually comes to fruition, I will be sure to give you a hell of a lot of credit, because this is quite difficult, but it's also quite fun to talk about. I'm surprised that nobody's done it yet. But thanks for watching, take care, we'll see you next time.